Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back. Today, I want to share with you 5 unsettling stories about the kind of fear that sits way too close to home. Cheap apartments, old houses, neighbors who seem helpful at first, little sounds in the walls, strange comments that should not be possible, and those small details people ignore because moving out is expensive and nobody wants to believe the worst right away. This is a batch of slower, more grounded stories where the horror is not some monster in the woods, but a person just on the other side of a door, a ceiling, a fence, or a vent. So before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you enjoy these kinds of stories. And now, get comfortable, turn the lights down if you want, and let's begin with the first story. I was 8 when my mom rented the upstairs apartment. She called it a unit because that made it sound less temporary. This was after she split from my dad, and money was bad. Not dramatic bad, just bills on the table. Mom doing math with a pen. My aunt asking if she needed gas money bad. I remember mom going through listings and saying this one was close enough to my school and the deposit was possible. It was an old rental house on a normal street, chopped into 2 apartments because fixing it right cost money. We had the upstairs. The landlord's son lived downstairs. To get to our door, you used an outside wooden staircase. 1 step dipped under your foot. Mom learned to pause on that one when she carried groceries after work. Inside, the place was just bad. The windows stuck. The bathroom fan sounded like gravel. The hallway was narrow, and in the ceiling was an attic hatch, painted the same dull white as everything else. One corner never sat quite flat. I used to look at it while I waited for the bathroom. It was just there. The landlord said her son could look at anything that needed fixing because he lived downstairs and helped with maintenance. That sounded normal. The lights flickered. The furnace made noises. He was always in and out of the lower utility closet to check the breaker or water heater, and Mom would say, "At least he's handy." A kitchen cabinet would be open when Mom swore she had closed it. The hallway closet had this dry, dusty smell some mornings. A cheap flashlight from the junk drawer went missing for a day and turned up on top of the fridge. At first, it was easy to blame us, and Mom did blame us. Then the hinges, then the draft, then herself for being tired, then the house being split by somebody who didn't care how people lived in it. The landlord's son was around too much, but not in a way you could do anything about. He'd be at the bottom of the stairs, asking if the power blinked. He'd be by the trash cans reminding Mom about pickup day. Once, he knocked and said his mother wanted him to check wiring, but Mom didn't let him in. I remember him looking past her into the hallway for just a second too long. After that, she closed the door faster. The thing that changed it for me was my brother. He was 5 and slept badly. He kept waking up, scared to go to the bathroom, so Mom started leaving the hallway light on some nights, just nights when she was too worn out to keep getting up with him. The next afternoon, the landlord's son was outside by the bins. He said something like, "Your boy's still having trouble sleeping up there." Then he said the light had been on half the night. Mom laughed, but it was that fake little adult laugh. Later, she said he probably saw it from outside, or the walls were thin, or old houses carried light and sound in weird ways. I think she needed one of those to be true. After that, when my brother said he heard something above the ceiling, she didn't snap at him. I remember dust under the attic hatch, a little line on the floor. I remember a short creak overhead, and then what Mom later said was the flat downstairs sound of the utility closet door opening and shutting. Mostly, I remember her standing barefoot in the hallway at night, looking up and listening, then saying in the morning it was probably a raccoon or a branch or the house cooling down after a hot day. That was the first night she stopped trying very hard to believe herself. She was in the hallway again, whispering the usual stuff. Pipes, boards, something on the roof. It wasn't a stomp. It was somebody shifting their weight carefully, trying not to make the ceiling creak. Then there was a soft knock near the attic hatch. Just wood touching wood. Mom looked up and saw one side of the hatch sitting higher than it should have. Not open, not some movie thing, just raised a little, with fresh dust sifted down along the trim. She didn't get a chair. She didn't yell. She didn't go downstairs and ask the landlord's son to check it. By then, it wasn't a repair problem anymore. She came into our room and woke us without turning the light on. She put her hand over my mouth first, not hard, just enough to tell me not to talk. Then she did the same with my brother. Shoes only, no toys, no backpacks. I remember being upset about my backpack because I was 8. It had school papers in it and some little plastic thing I thought mattered. Mom didn't care. She grabbed her keys and purse. She left my brother's medicine in the bathroom cabinet because going back down that hallway was not happening. We went out through the kitchen and onto the outside stairs with the lights off. Mom had one hand on my brother and one on the railing. Her keys made a tiny sound and she squeezed them in her fist until it stopped. She wasn't watching the bad step. She was looking up at the house, at the small dark attic window. The next day, she went back with my aunt and a man my aunt knew who did repair work on old houses. I wasn't there for most of that. Mom told me years later, and even then, she told it like she hated saying it. The man didn't solve it like some detective. He couldn't say how many times someone had been up there, or when, or what they could see. He just confirmed the physical part. The attic over our apartment had not really been separated from the lower part of the house. Near the service chase, an old plywood partition had been shifted enough for a person to get through, if they knew where they were going. And the way to get there started in that lower utility closet. The landlord tried to talk around it. Wiring, insulation, old access. Her son checked old lines sometimes. My aunt asked if he had been in the attic at night, and she would not answer it straight. We moved out fast. Mom lost the deposit. We left cheap stuff behind because none of it was worth walking through that hallway again. And I still remember him saying, the light had been on half the night. So yeah, that one worked for me because it never needed to get loud. The detail that really got me was him knowing the hallway light had been on half the night. That is such a small thing, but once you understand the attic access, it becomes disgusting in a very quiet way. And I liked that the mother's reaction was not some horror movie confrontation. She just got the kids, stayed silent, and left. That feels real. Sometimes the scariest choice is not proving anything, it is just getting out before the situation explains itself any further. Alright, let's move on to the next one. I bought the house because it was small, old, and one of the only places in that neighborhood I could afford without doing something stupid financially. But it was mine. It was a quiet, older suburban street. Porches facing porches, trash cans at the curb on Thursday nights. I was new, and I didn't want to start off by acting paranoid. The backyard had a low side gate with a latch that didn't always catch, unless you pulled it twice. My screened porch was in back, but because my driveway ran along that side, someone across the street could see part of it, through the gap between houses. My cat Milo loved that porch. He was old, 14 or 15, with cloudy eyes and a faded blue breakaway collar. It used to have a bell, but it fell off forever ago and left a pale mark. He'd lie against the screen door while I unpacked. Diane lived across the street, late 60s, maybe early 70s. At first, she was the kind of neighbor you're grateful for. She told me trash day brought over a misdelivered box and gave me a plumber's number. "That old boy yours?" she called while I was breaking down boxes in the driveway. I said yes, and she smiled like I told her something personal. She'd wave if he was sitting by the screen. I don't even remember giving her my number, but neighbors exchange numbers. That's what I told myself. The first time she called him our old man, I laughed. I wish I hadn't. I let something weird pass because reacting would have felt rude. She left cat treats on my porch railing with a note that said, "For Milo, if his mom says okay." Weird, but not insane. She texted once, "Milo looked lonely today." Annoying, but she could see part of the porch. One day I came home and the side gate was latched. Diane said it had been banging in the wind. To be fair, it had been windy. I thanked her. Then one afternoon, I walked into my kitchen and saw her in my backyard, standing near the screened porch. I opened the back door and she turned around fast, with both hands up. "I heard scratching," she said. "I thought maybe he got stuck." Milo was inside, under the table, asleep. Somehow, I still apologized first. Then I told her I appreciated it, but I didn't want anyone coming into the yard without texting or calling. Diane didn't argue. She just got very polite. "Of course," she said. "I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable." For a few days, she barely texted. I felt guilty, which is ridiculous, but I did. Then she brought over another package like nothing happened, and I let myself believe it was fine. Milo disappeared on a Tuesday evening. After I got groceries, I'd made 3 trips through the side gate because the kitchen door was easier from the driveway. Bottled water, eggs, frozen stuff. I remember kicking the gate shut with my foot and thinking I needed to take the trash cans down after dinner. I do not remember pulling the latch twice. By the time I noticed Milo wasn't on the screened porch, it was dark. His blanket by the screen door was empty. I checked under the couch, behind the dryer, inside closets, even though I knew he wasn't there. I called the shelter, left a message with animal control, printed flyers with a bad phone photo, and posted on Facebook and Nextdoor. I asked about doorbell cameras, but most pointed at driveways or the street. Nobody had my backyard. The next morning, she came over near my mailbox and asked, "Did he eat before he got out? Need another flashlight?" Sometimes old cats crawl somewhere dark when they're sick. I hated her for saying it, and then I hated myself because she might have been right. The next afternoon, I found a faded blue collar in the grass near my mailbox. No tag, no fur stuck to it. Damp from somebody's sprinklers. It had a pale little mark where a bell might have been. It looked like Milo's. But those collars are in every pet aisle in America, and without the tag, I couldn't prove it was his. Later that day, Diane stopped at the edge of my driveway and said, very casually, "Well, if he slipped out that screen door, he may not have gone far." The thing was, I had never put the screen door on the flyer. 2 days later, she texted me at 7:18 in the morning. I remember because I'd barely slept and my phone was sitting next to cold coffee while I refreshed the neighborhood group like an idiot. I don't want to get your hopes up, but I heard a little meow under my front porch earlier. I was out the door in under a minute. I grabbed Milo's carrier, the treats, and my phone. I didn't even put on real shoes, just the old sneakers by the back door. By then, I was tired and guilty enough that any chance felt like something I had to take. Diane was already outside when I crossed the street. Her house looked normal. Porch light still on even though it was morning. Old doormat. Garden hose curled beside the steps. Stale cigarette smell. On the side of her porch, one lattice panel was loose and pulled back enough to make a dark opening under the steps. Diane opened her little backyard gate for me and shut it behind us. "I heard him right around here," she said. Poor thing sounded weak. I crouched and called Milo's name. Nothing. Diane handed me a heavy black flashlight. "You'll have to look," she said. "My knees won't let me get down there. If he hears my voice, he might spook. Cats know their people." I shined the light under the porch. Damp dirt. Old leaves. A food wrapper near the foundation. The opening was lower than it looked. To get in, I would have had to go almost flat. Arms first, phone in my pocket, face near the dirt, with Diane and the gate behind me. That was when I stopped thinking about Milo and thought about where I was. Diane was close enough that if I backed up, I would hit either her legs or the gate. I said, "I think I should call animal control. Or maybe we can get someone to take the panel off." Her face didn't twist or anything dramatic. It just went stiff. "You said you wanted to find him." "I do," I said. "I just don't want to crawl under their blind." Then she took my wrist. Not hard at first, not enough that I could point to it later and say, "Look, this proves it," but hard enough that I stopped moving. She pushed the flashlight back toward my hand like I'd forgotten to take it. "If you really want your cat back," she said very quietly, "you need to look yourself." I yanked my arm away. She held on half a second too long. The treats fell. The bag split open. I backed into the gate so hard, Milo's carrier smacked against it. And for one awful second, I couldn't get the latch open. Diane just stood there with the flashlight hanging at her side. "I was only trying to help," she said. I got back across the street, with the carrier banging against my leg, and called animal control from my porch. Later, I called the non-emergency police line. It was her property. Milo wasn't there when anyone checked. The caller had no tag. By then, the mark on my wrist looked like something I could have done carrying groceries. They wrote it down, gave me a case number, and that was basically it. Milo never came back. The flyers got taken down or turned soft and gray after rain. The shelter stopped calling with possible matches. Neighbors said they were sorry, but nobody saw anything useful. Diane still sits on her porch. Sometimes she comments on lost pet posts in the neighborhood group with sweet little messages and broken heart emojis. I changed the locks, had a handyman put a new latch on the side gate, and I keep the screen porch shut, even on nice days. I put Milo's carrier in the closet because I couldn't stand seeing it by the laundry room door, and now I wait until Diane goes inside before I check my mailbox. That one was rough. Not just because of what may have happened to Milo, but because Diane knew exactly how to use guilt against the narrator. The image of that loose lattice under the porch, the flashlight, the gate behind them, and this neighbor standing a little too close. I could picture that way too clearly. It has that awful feeling where the danger is still technically polite, still pretending to be helpful, until it suddenly is not. And the ending with her still commenting on lost pet posts is honestly one of the creepiest parts. Let me know what you think happened there, because it leaves just enough uncertainty to make it worse. I was a junior in high school when my dad's Little League team moved into our garage. Not officially, it just happened. Dad coached 11 and 12-year-olds, and after practice, I helped unload the pickup. Bats, helmets, catcher's gear, folding chairs, jerseys that smelled like grass, water bottles, Hoodies the kids swore weren't theirs. Half our garage was normal junk, and the other half was baseball junk. Our houses were close together. On the side of our garage, there was a narrow strip between our wall and Mrs. Bell's fence. Trash cans, side shelves, a busted rake, the side door opened right into it. If the main garage door was half down, or Dad was taking jerseys to laundry, kids sometimes knocked there for a glove or mitt they forgot. Nobody thought that was weird. That's the part I hate now. It was just Coach's garage. Dad kept his clipboard on the workbench most days. Practice notes, pickup times, parent numbers. It sounds careless now. Back then, it was one more thing sitting between a socket set and duct tape. Mrs. Bell lived next door forever. Her son, Darren, moved back in spring after some divorce or job trouble. At first, he wasn't scary, just awkward, like an adult who didn't have much going on. He'd stand on the porch with a soda, take trash out late, or come up to the fence like he wanted a reason to talk. He asked about baseball, the boys' ages, Saturday games, whether they all lived nearby, whether Dad had old team photos. Dad answered short but polite. Mrs. Bell was sweet, and nobody wanted trouble with her son because he was kind of off. I thought he was weird, sure. But weird is not the same as dangerous. That's what we told ourselves. Then little things started sticking. One evening, Mason, our smallest catcher, came back for his mitt while his mom waited out front, and Darren was already by the fence watching me dig through the glove bin. Another time, he called to a kid by jersey number, not name, then laughed like he was joking. A few days later, he asked me, "Your dad still keep the schedule out here?" I remember just staring at him. He nodded toward the garage. For practices and pickups. I told him I didn't know, even though I did. When I told Dad, he got mad for about 2 seconds, then talked himself back down. Darren hadn't come inside. He hadn't touched anybody. He hadn't really done anything you could point at without sounding paranoid. But Dad started watching him. Not like some movie stakeout. He noticed Darren didn't come over when we washed the truck or mowed. He came out when kids walked back after practice, when parents waited at the curb, when the garage was open. One night, Dad couldn't find his clipboard. We found it under a box of jerseys instead of on the bench. The garage was a mess, so I said maybe I moved it. I might have. I honestly don't know anymore. What we remembered later was Darren standing at the fence that same evening, while Dad told Mason's mom what time Saturday pickup was. The night everything finally made sense, practice ran late. Mason's mom pulled up at the curb because he had left his glove in our garage. The main garage door was down to about my waist. Dad was in the driveway talking to another parent, and I was in back, stacking bats. Mason went for the side door because that's what kids did. I didn't see Darren at first. The garage wall blocked him. I just heard his voice from that narrow strip by the fence. Coach said you could check this way. It's probably by the side shelves. Dad told me later he only caught Coach said. That was enough. He saw Mason slow near the side door, and his face changed. He called Mason back in his coach voice, then waved at Mason's mom and told her not to let him go around the side alone. Darren stepped out like he'd misunderstood everything. Hands up, embarrassed smile, saying he thought the kid needed help. Dad didn't yell. I think that scared me more. He just told Darren to get away from the door and not talk to his players. Darren nodded and went behind the fence. He didn't run, he didn't argue, he just went back to being the weird neighbor. Dad checked on Mason, then talked to his mom by the car. Inside, he and my mom argued about who to call and what we could even say. After that, the rules changed quietly. The gear stopped living in our garage, forgotten gloves got picked up at the field or with an adult there. The side door stayed locked, even in the afternoon. Dad's clipboard stopped sitting out. A couple days later, Dad found a crumpled scrap behind a box of old baseballs. 2 last names were spelled wrong. There was one jersey number, SAT 1030, and part of the word pickup, copied crooked, like someone had written it fast. Dad made a report and warned a few parents. Nothing clean came from it. Darren stopped coming to the fence. Mrs. Bell barely came outside, and their house had a for sale sign in the yard. After that, we locked that side door even when everyone was home. I liked how grounded this one was. The scariest part for me was not Darren being openly threatening, because he really wasn't. It was how normal the whole setup looked from the outside. Kids coming by Coach's garage, a neighbor asking little questions, a clipboard left on a workbench. Nothing dramatic, until you realize he was collecting just enough information to create an opening. The line "Coach said" is the part that hits, because that is exactly the kind of phrase a kid might trust for half a second. And sometimes half a second is all someone needs. Strange, uncomfortable story. All right, let's continue. My wife and I only took the downstairs unit because it was cheap. That was the reason. We were both working, both tired, and every apartment listing was either too expensive or had some insane catch buried in it. This place was a few hundred under market, so we took it. It was an old detached house, split into 2 rentals. Not a real duplex, more like somebody put a door in the wrong place and called it good. We had the lower unit. Upstairs guy had the 2nd floor. The landlord called it character. It had cheap repairs. The floors slanted. The windows rattled when trucks went by. The bathroom fan sounded like it was chewing gravel. There was a dusty return vent low on the wall near our bedroom. In the hallway across from the bathroom, there was a narrow linen closet with shelves painted over so many times. The corners looked almost melted. Above the top shelf was a square ceiling hatch, painted shut, except for 2 old screws. Megan asked, "What's that?" "Probably an access panel." "For what?" "I don't know. Old house stuff." And that became our answer for everything. Old house stuff. Bad insulation. Pipes in dumb places. Every problem had been painted white and ignored. Our upstairs neighbor introduced himself the 2nd day. His name was Calvin. He was maybe 40, maybe younger. He wasn't creepy in the obvious way, which is part of why I feel stupid telling this. He didn't hover at our door or stare at my wife. He was just helpful. He warned us about the window that leaked in hard rain, the breaker that tripped if we used a space heater, and a few fake access panels the landlord had painted over. He had helped with small repairs over the years. Pipes, filters, panels, little stuff. He also mentioned an old service chase between the units, where pipes and ductwork ran after the conversion. "This place carries sound weird," he said. "Everything sounds closer than it should." I used that sentence later to talk myself out of being worried. For the first couple weeks, Calvin was just the upstairs guy who knew the house. Then the comments got too specific. The first one was about our box fan. We kept it in the bedroom because the window AC barely worked. The fan had this low grinding hum, so one night I moved it into the hallway and aimed it toward the bedroom instead. The next afternoon, I was locking my car when Calvin came down the outside stairs. "Fan finally quit making that noise?" he asked. He said the ducts carried vibration and he could hear it upstairs. And okay, fine. I accepted it. The fan had been loud and the house was thin. I could hear him walking around up there, so maybe he could hear our fan. Megan didn't buy it. She asked if he knew I had moved it. I said he only knew it stopped making noise. That's not the same thing, she said. After that, she started lowering her voice in the bedroom and closing the door during the day. It annoyed me more than it should have, mostly because some part of me knew she wasn't completely wrong. The laundry basket was the one I couldn't explain. We had this cheap plastic hamper that didn't fit anywhere, so it ended up in the hallway, shoved against the wall beside that closet. One evening, I was carrying groceries in, and Calvin passed me in the driveway. "You might not want to keep stuff tight against that closet wall," he said. I stopped. What? Air doesn't move right in there. That wall sweats sometimes. Laundry will start smelling musty. It sounded normal for about half a second. Old house, moisture, airflow. Sure. Then I got inside, and Megan was standing in the kitchen. How does he know where the laundry basket is? I started arguing before I had an answer. Maybe he saw it when the door was open. Maybe through a window. Megan shot both down because the hallway door hadn't been open, and there wasn't a hallway window. She was right. I knew she was right, I just did not want her to be right. We had paid first month, last month, and deposit. We needed the place to work. I did not want to call the landlord and say Calvin knew where our laundry was. So I stuck with old house, thin walls, weird ducts. Maybe he heard us moving the hamper. Maybe. The hatch thing started with dust, not scratching or footsteps or anything dramatic, just dust. One Saturday morning, Megan pulled towels out of the linen closet and came into the kitchen, holding one away from her body. Smell this. It smelled damp and stale, like wet cardboard and old insulation. I checked the top shelf, and there was gray film on the wood, heavier near the back corner, under the hatch. Mice? She said. Could be. I didn't really think mice made that smell, but again, easiest answer. I texted the landlord a picture and asked if pest control could check the access panel. 4 hours later, he wrote back, "Put traps down for now. I'll have someone look when I can." That was pretty much the landlord experience. I bought 2 cheap snap traps and bait. Nothing happened for 3 days. No droppings, no chewing, no mouse. Just the same gross dust smell whenever the closet opened. On the 4th day, I got sick of waiting. I brought in the stepladder and emptied the closet. One screw was loose enough to turn with my fingers. The other had paint packed into the slot, and I had to dig at it with a kitchen knife. Even then, I wasn't scared. I was annoyed, grossed out, sweaty. It still looked like a bad repair in a bad rental. When I worked the panel loose, dry dust came down all over my face and shirt. I climbed down, wiped my eyes, swore a few times, then went back up with my phone, flashlight on. There was no attic, no hidden room, just a low, dirty gap between beams with matted insulation stuffed around old pipes and ductwork. But there was a line in the dust, a narrow, rubbed line, like something had dragged through it more than once. And it didn't go toward the pipes over the bathroom. It went the other way, toward our bedroom. My brain was still fighting it. Maybe a worker had crawled through there years ago. Maybe the dust looked disturbed because of the light. Maybe insulation had been pulled that way when they ran the duct. I kept trying to make it boring. I couldn't fit up there. I'm not huge, but the space was maybe 18 inches high in spots, and the hatch opened over closet shelves. So I did the dumb renter thing. I stretched my arm in with my phone, turned on video, and swept the flashlight over the beams. Mostly it was what you'd expect. Dust. Old wood. Loose insulation. Then the video caught the rubbed strip better than I could see it from below. The insulation beside it was flattened down along that narrow path. Then I saw the cough drop wrapper. It was crumpled beside a joist near the ductwork. Red, dusty, but not old. The kind of thing you find in a coat pocket from last winter. I said, "What the hell?" Megan was in the bedroom. "What?" I didn't answer. I pushed my arm farther in and almost dropped the phone. Past the wrapper, the space got lower, and the ductwork angled toward where I knew our bedroom wall was. I couldn't prove it from that angle. I didn't have a blueprint or anything. But I knew where the vent was below, and I hated where that path was going. I was still trying to make it a repair thing. Maybe Calvin had been up there months ago for some landlord job, sucking on cough drops because of dust. It was thin. I knew it was thin. Then something moved above me. Not a mouse. Not the house settling. Wait. The insulation made this slow dragging sound somewhere past the beam. Then the wood gave a little creak, like someone putting a knee down where there wasn't much room. I froze with one hand on the hatch and my phone still up in the dark. Another scrape came from farther in, moving away from me, toward the upstairs unit. Megan came out of the bedroom. She didn't ask what happened. She looked at the open hatch, then at me on the ladder, and I could see she had heard it too. "Get down," she said. "Get the keys." That was it. I climbed down too fast and slammed my shin on the ladder. I put the hatch back because leaving it open felt worse. Then I shoved a laundry hamper under it and stacked 2 moving boxes on top, which was stupid. A hamper and 2 boxes were not stopping a grown man, but I did it anyway. Megan grabbed our documents folder, her laptop, chargers, and an overnight bag. I grabbed my wallet, keys, and my phone with the video still open. We didn't pack like we were moving. We packed like we didn't want to turn our backs on the hallway. From the car, I sent the landlord the video and wrote, "Someone has been in the ceiling space above our unit." We went to Megan's sister's place across town. She called the non-emergency line on the way. They were polite, but it was the kind of polite where you already know they are not coming with lights on. No face on video. No clear forced entry into our actual unit. File a report, talk to the landlord. The next morning, we went back with Megan's brother. Calvin was outside by the trash bins, calm as anything. He didn't ask about the vent, didn't ask about the hatch. He just said, "Everything okay down there? Heard a bunch of banging by that closet last night." I stared at him. Then he gave this little shrug and said, "I can take a look sometime." The landlord came later and acted annoyed before he even saw the closet. He watched maybe 10 seconds of the video and started talking about old houses, animals, settling old insulation, previous tenants hearing noises around that closet. Then he started talking about repairs and how we weren't supposed to remove painted access panels ourselves. I stopped trying to explain. I took pictures, we broke the lease, lost part of the deposit, moved into a more expensive apartment with less space and better walls. And now in every rental, I check the closets, the access panels, and every bedroom vent. This one had a very strong visual for me. That low gap above the closet, the dragged line in the dust, the cough drop wrapper, and then that slow movement away into the ceiling space, that is nasty. It feels almost like a grounded hidden room horror movie, except cheaper and more depressing because it is all tied to bad rentals and landlords brushing things off. The line from Calvin at the end, asking about the banging by the closet, really seals it. He is not even hiding the fact that he knows too much. I think this one might be one of the most unsettling in the batch, because the house itself keeps helping him. I moved into that condo because our old apartment raised the rent by $400 in 1 month. My partner and I were stretched thin, so we took the cheapest place that didn't look unsafe. Old 3-story condo building, busy road, stained hallway carpet, buzzing lights. The units were supposedly owned by different people, but ours went through a property management company. Our front door opened almost straight into a laundry closet with a stacked washer and dryer. Behind it was a narrow service panel with pipes and gaps around the wall. In the hall, a few feet from us, there was a low vent grate and a utility alcove with a louvered door. Maintenance never latched right. Then a dirty HVAC filter showed up in a plastic grocery bag in front of our door. I thought maintenance had mixed up units, so I emailed management. They sent back a useless, "We'll look into it." The next morning, there was a note above our peephole. "Stop sending chemical smell through the wall." That evening, the man across our shared wall was standing by the hallway vent with the same filter. He asked what detergent we used, what we kept in our laundry closet, and why the air turns sweet at night. We tried not to make it worse. I know that sounds stupid now, but he didn't seem dangerous yet. We couldn't break a lease and lose the deposit because one guy hated laundry smell. So we bought unscented detergent, moved the bleach, took photos, emailed management, and put in a maintenance request. A maintenance guy came around noon, shined a flashlight into the hallway grate, opened our laundry closet about 6 inches, and said old buildings had shared exhaust chases where air wandered. Then he closed the request without opening anything that mattered. After that, our neighbor started appearing in the hall more, by the mailboxes, near the elevator, by that vent, always with old filters in a grocery bag, like evidence. He wasn't screaming, which made it harder to know what to do. The night things changed. He knocked after midnight, soft at first, then harder. I opened the door on the latch because I was half asleep and pissed off, and some dumb part of me still thought I could talk to him like a normal person. He was standing way too close. "I need to see the laundry closet," he said. "The source is in there." I said no and tried to shut the door. He put his boot on the threshold and grabbed the frame. My partner was behind me, trying to call non-emergency, and for a few seconds it was me, a cheap door chain, and his shoulder pushing back. I slammed my shoulder into the door and got it shut hard enough that his fingers snapped away. By the time a patrol car came through, he was gone. We got an incident number and the advice to keep documenting. Management said he had been warned, then asked us to send photos of future incidents. So basically, nothing changed. For a few days, it got quiet enough that we almost believed the warning worked. Then little things started showing up. Not one big clue. A damp towel under the hallway grate, tape across the utility alcove door, one loose screw on the carpet, a sour wet cloth smell in our laundry closet. Then a hot, dusty smell we blamed on the dryer or bathroom fan. There was an older woman on our floor with a portable oxygen concentrator. One evening by the elevator, she said the air had been bad lately. We saw our neighbor less after that, but when we did, he looked worse. Same grocery bag, same filters, bloodshot eyes. Sometimes he almost sounded sorry before telling us again that we had to stop it. The final night started with a smell that did not register as fire at first. I thought somebody burned dinner, or maybe our dryer belt was getting hot. Then the smoke detector by our front door started chirping. We opened the laundry closet first. Of course we did. Everything had been aimed there for weeks, so we wasted a couple minutes pulling towels out, touching the dryer hose, looking behind the machines with our phone lights, like idiots. I was still saying, maybe it's the hookup, when my partner pointed at the bottom of the front door. Gray smoke was coming in from the hallway. I opened the door and the hall was already cloudy, but the building alarm still wasn't really going. Somewhere near the elevator, one old detector was beeping by itself. The smoke was thicker by the utility alcove. Its louvered door was cracked open and inside was a metal bucket with red coals, cheap incense sticks, and melted plastic trash sagging over the sides. That chemical sweetness hit my throat so hard, I gagged. Our neighbor was right there, coughing, eyes streaming, one hand on the alcove door, like he was holding it open on purpose. "I'm burning it out," he kept saying. "It's finally coming out." We backed toward the stairwell, then turned back because people still had their doors shut. My partner called 911 while I pounded on doors and yelled there was smoke in the hall. The older woman opened late, confused with oxygen tubing pulling tight around her cart. We got her through the hallway, half bent over, coughing by the time we reached the stairs. Later, we heard she went to the hospital for smoke exposure. The building never burned, which somehow made the aftermath worse. The fire department put out the bucket, and one firefighter tore into maintenance over that alcove not being secured. Management sent a dry email about smoke remediation, while our clothes still smelled like melted plastic. Someone by the mailboxes said eviction had started. Our unit smelled worst by the laundry closet. We threw out clothes, pillows, and our mattress. Management still argued about cleaning fees because the damage was not fully inside the unit. We broke the lease, lost money, and never got a straight answer about what happened to him. In our next place, I checked every vent cover for the first month and kept a little smoke detector on a shelf by the laundry area. Yeah, that ending felt heavy. What stuck with me here was how the danger slowly moved from annoying neighbor behavior into something that could have hurt everyone on that floor. And the really frustrating part is that so many things were almost warning signs. The vent, the filters, the utility alcove, the smell, the late night knocking. But everything got treated like a management issue until it became smoke in the hallway. The image of the older woman with the oxygen tubing being helped out really made the story feel less like a weird neighbor story and more like a serious near disaster. I'm curious which story from this batch got to you the most. And that was the last story for today. Honestly, this whole batch had that really uncomfortable kind of fear where nothing feels impossible. Just old rentals, thin walls, strange neighbors, ignored warnings, and people trying to convince themselves that everything is probably fine when it clearly is not. Let me know in the comments which story got to you the most, because for me, these grounded ones are sometimes worse than the more supernatural stuff. Also, if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and write down below if you want more stories like this in the future. And as always, check out the extra platforms if you want some bonus content or just want to support the channel a little more. Thank you so much for watching and listening. I really appreciate you being here. Take care of yourselves, and goodbye.